December meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to order. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second.
Second?
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have the minutes of the November 14th meeting. Are there any changes or corrections to that?
No.
Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve?
Is there a second? Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. We're to our public forum, and there's nobody here, so we'll proceed through that. Our primary item on the agenda is the review of the Ames Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan, which was adopted back in 2009, and which over the last year or so, we've periodically looked at it and never really did a ongoing effort on that. So we're trying to come back and since it is a 10-year anniversary of the adoption of it, try to do a little more review so that we can either recommend changes or say that it's still consistent or still appropriate, I guess. That's what we always make decisions on appropriate.
Yeah, appropriate.
So,
That's right.
looking back through the minutes, I know we've talked about implementing a couple of the action items, one on talking with neighborhoods about possible further research on historic, whether different neighborhoods would be appropriate for a historic district or historic properties. And that was discussed but never moved forward. We also, the one thing we did document in our minutes was that the goal, I think goal number 3 to update chapter 31 of the code had been accomplished back in 2015.
Mhm.
And so that objective A of goal number 3 could drop, well, could be indicated as accomplished. I don't know if there's a way to drop it, but what I'd like to do is just sort of go through goal by goal and action step by action step and talk as a group whether we feel something's been accomplished, and if not, whether we feel it's still something to be worked on or possibly dropped in priority, we could say, as we go through. But I think it is appropriate to pick some to work on, but I think what's really needed is to go through point by point and decide where we stand on each one. So I'll just go ahead and read. Goal number 1 is to acknowledge the role of historic preservation in encouraging civic pride, neighborhood identity, economic vitality, and community sustainability. And under that, there's an objective A, to adopt strategies to conserve historic neighborhoods which reflect their organic development, historical roles and traditions, modern needs, and economic health and stability. 3 action steps. The first is to form a umbrella organization of neighborhood associations to work toward goals of mutual benefit. Second is to encourage the study and appreciation of Ames history in all its wards and eras, including the mid-20th century. And third is to develop design guidelines for the installation and use of historic streetlights in national and local historic districts. I know that the city has neighborhood summits that they hold, and they record neighborhood associations, but I don't know whether that really fits this action step. It may be that terminology is a little different, but we may consider that that actually is something that a organization, some kind of structure, I guess, for the neighborhoods has been established. So I don't know, what do other people feel? Do we consider this as something that there has been at least substantial
Well,
accomplishment?
we have, neighborhood associations that register with the city. I think that was going on probably even before this. But when they're registered, then when some development is proposed in their neighborhood, then we notify the neighborhood chair, then they can distribute information to others in the neighborhood. And of course, people within a certain distance, usually 200 feet, are notified of what's going on. But then it gets to a broader area when we notify.
And those notifications have included legislation on some of the zoning issues and stuff.
Yeah, if there's
related
rezoning
to
or,
occupancy and that type of thing.
yep, anything that's going to the Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council for review and approval.
Okay.
Ray, did they do an annual joint meeting though,
Yeah,
too?
there is an annual meeting of the neighborhoods.
I think it's in October.
Yeah, I think so.
Sure.
Another
that's-
planner in our office, Julie Gould.
Yeah.
She's that's one of her specialty areas is the neighborhood planning. So she works with all the various neighborhoods that are registered.
So do they develop their, I was just thinking if there was something about historic preservation,
There-
the neighborhood could be brought to an agenda.
I have attended a number of those neighborhood summits, and
Mhm.
historic preservation really hasn't been a topic that's been discussed.
Yeah.
A lot of it is talking with police department about neighborhood patrolling and things
Yeah.
about code enforcement.
Mhm.
But I think it's an opportunity. I know we have
Yep.
later an action item that we should sponsor a neighborhood summit on historic preservation. And I think that's an opportunity. But I think the idea that there's a structure has been put together to let the neighborhoods work on items of mutual benefit. I think the structure's there.
Mhm.
It
Yep.
just hasn't been focused on historic preservation.
I would agree with you.
Okay.
And there's a dedicated person in the planning department that does that, that acts as a liaison to that group.
There,
Yes.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, Julie is the neighborhood
Oh, Julie.
liaison.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yep,
And-
cool. Yep.
Okay, the second action step was to encourage the study and appreciation of Ames history in all the wards and eras, including the mid-20th century.
And there've been a number of surveys that have been done. Some more detailed than others. Let's see, in College Heights, there was an intensive level survey. So the next step would be to
actually list
seek
it.
a national register nomination or local district designation.
Well, and I think in terms of the way the action step is written, the support to the Ames History Museum or Ames Historical Society, as it was originally called, or previously called, there's a lot that they accomplish with partial support from the city that addresses the study and appreciation of history is pretty general.
Right.
Yeah.
I had that note myself.
Yeah.
I mean, this is almost the role of the historical society more than it is this group.
And I think later there is a thing about talking about supporting them, and it may be appropriate to try to set some expectations or something so that there is a coordination with historic preservation. But I think, well, I have to say I'm on the board of that, so I don't want to be in a conflict of interest, but I do think they are addressing that. It's just how closely do they coordinate with us? They do coordinate with us on the downtown plaque program and stuff.
Right.
Can I back up for a minute? Ray, from your
Yeah.
perspective as the city planning liaison to this group, I mean, are there neighborhoods or in Ames that are historic neighborhoods that are threatened? I mean, are there opportunities out there that we might not see if we don't live in those neighborhoods? I mean, is there a way to target based on need our efforts here instead of trying to speak to the city as a whole? And I don't know if this is the right time to address that, but
Well, in fact, even with the historic preservation plan in chapter 4, his chair's there. It prioritizes, some areas that should be surveyed and designated and so forth. And so that would be one way to focus our efforts on the areas that really resources could be threatened if they're not preserved.
not just threatened necessarily, but things that make Ames special that could be better capitalized on.
Yes.
Opportunities. I think
Exactly.
I don't want to always take a negative
Right.
act on this.
Mhm.
How do you
And-
guys feel about that?
In the minutes, there was, that's one of the initiatives that never went anywhere, is that we were going to try to bring in neighborhoods that were interested in pursuing
Right.
anything.
Mhm.
I agree that sometimes there's specific resources or something that we don't want to see lost, but it was also, the idea was that it always helps if the neighborhood is interested in pursuing some research
Does. Yeah.
and working with us, so it can be a combination of both. And I think that really needs to happen, is to, the idea of meeting with the neighborhoods and broaching the possibility of pursuing research on their histories, or the possibility of some type of district or designation. But I think, I think we said we were going to work with the Historical Society and the university to put together a meeting to discuss this kind of possibility, and then we didn't have meetings a couple of times, and next
Yeah.
thing we know,
It kind of fell through the
it's
cracks.
gone.
Yep.
Yes. The next one on developing guidelines for installation of and use of historic streetlights. I think downtown has
We have streetlights.
historic looking streetlights. I don't know that anything's been done along that line for Old Town. There's
Nope.
historic street signs, but not, the
Right.
lighting isn't.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a partial in that downtown has been addressed before it was a historic district. but,
Mhm.
I don't know that that rises to the same level as some of the other stuff here, but
No, I agree, yeah.
I think that's a
a lower priority.
very low priority. And it benefits a subset of the population, a
Yeah.
very small subset. And I know in the preservation world, we tend not to like stuff that looks ye-olde, legitimately
Yeah.
historic. So I would be in, if we're amending this document, I'd be in favor of
Just drop
Striking it.
dropping
Dropping that
that,
one.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Okay. We'll go to objective B. Well,
Can't talk.
let's have a vote. Proposal to drop action, the third action step of objective A. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, and probably what you'd have to do is,
It'd be a
since the
recommend.
council
Recommendation.
adopted this, it'd be a recommendation to the council.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to objective B. Facilitate the preservation efforts of neighborhood associations. Share historical preservation survey data with neighborhood associations.
Yeah.
That exists, but I don't know that most of the historical associations would even be aware that it exists. And I think that this is where the second action step is to
Mhm.
sponsor an annual summit. And since there are summits, we might
Tap in.
plan for this
Try in.
next cycle, which I think will be in October, but
Mhm.
that gives us some time to prepare to have a focus on historic preservation and talk about what resources are already in existence and make an offer to work with them on something. So I think that probably, I would propose that as
Mhm.
something to target for the next year
Yeah.
to accomplish both of those items.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I agree. I also think this is an opportunity to get back to the issue of the website that we've
Yeah.
talked about a lot. And I know it's not
Mhm.
the sort of thing we can snap our fingers and be done with, but if the goal is to disseminate information in whatever
Yeah.
way we can,
Easiest.
a summit is nice because you can see people face to face and
Right.
have human contact in a way that we don't always have. But I think an updated website would, go a long way to solving the lack of data problem that I think many cities have, and this one certainly does when it comes to preservation. I think updating the website, and we've talked about this, current local and national register listings, and then distinguishing in the districts between contributing and non-contributing, which I think is really crucial. And I know we've talked about this before, but I don't remember where we left it. I also think graphic COA walkthroughs like Dubuque has done. We don't have a lot of problems with homeowners who come to us and having had made poor decisions about their rehabilitation projects. We're usually able to work with them readily, but if we can nip those in the proverbial bud, I think
Right.
that would be a good thing.
You're thinking like illustrated design
Yeah.
guidelines, like
Yep.
almost a pattern book.
Yeah,
or
so
something like that.
City of Dubuque has, I keep
Mhm.
pointing to them as
Yep.
the gold standard, but they've done that very well. And having talked to those folks, I know that they, it's the number of problematic COAs went down dramatically, if I have this right, after they implemented graphic standards. And again, we don't seem to have that problem, but I think it helps homeowners in a way that we should be helping them. But, you know, I mean, updated website ties into other objectives.
Yeah.
Objective C, tourism.
Mhm.
So that's a good starting point to address many of these things.
Yeah, and Eloise, you know, she did quite a bit on the website already.
Right.
but
Yeah.
Not that there can't be more done.
Yeah, I think she addressed a number of the things in here, but making access to some of the survey work that's been done wasn't something she
Mhm.
Yeah.
put out there.
Mhm.
And so I'd say that's sort of a next
Yeah.
level to work on with the website.
I think is a word of caution. I when I worked in SHPOs in the past, we were always very careful to put potentially to clarify that potentially eligible doesn't mean listed.
Okay.
Yeah.
It tends to
Mhm.
scare people if they find a document on a government site saying that
There's a.
you're in a district and they didn't know. So I think any publication of this data online has to come with a very clear caveat saying this data is 10 years old or older.
Yeah.
Right.
It's tentative until we take it to the next step, but hopefully that'll generate interest in the work that's already been done.
Mhm. That's a good point.
We'll move to objective C. Actions, well, the objective is to strengthen the role of historic preservation in promoting Ames tourism. The action step is to inform the Convention Visitors Bureau, the university, the Chamber of Commerce about historic preservation as an essential component to market Ames tourism. What I am aware is I know when Old Town did our walking tour brochure, that was distributed through the Convention and Visitors Bureau, at least initially. Well, it was funded with a grant from the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and they in turn took a number of the brochures and were distributing them. I don't know to what extent that happened, and I don't know if they've run out. We haven't heard back from the Historical Society distributes them also, and they've come back to us several times.
And
for
we've had
more,
some at City
so.
Hall, but we're out of them.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I have the repository right
Oh,
now.
good.
I can get you some.
That would be
but,
great.
Yeah.
Do you see a lot of tourists in Old Town? A lot of people walking around and using the guides?
Not that we are aware of, or not that I'm aware of.
I just think if we're going to focus our efforts on tourism, we focus on things like Lincoln Highway, the university, and even Main Street, more so than the residential neighborhoods.
Well, there,
Um,
we get a lot when we were having the home tours.
Yeah.
That was really doing it, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau did a lot to help promote that. But on day-to-day, based on those walking brochures, I don't know if it happens. It probably happens some. I've once in a while heard somebody say they've walked around, but it's not a big item.
Could we include in the action step, in addition to the Convention and Visitors Bureau? Oh, you have the university. I think the university has to figure more prominently here.
Mhm.
People that come to Ames more often than not, I would argue, for the university.
Right.
And to find ways to work with them to promote their historic buildings, I think would be advantageous to everyone.
When I'd say a potential action step would be to work with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and promote to other historic neighborhoods the opportunity to put together a walking tour type of thing. Our neighborhood just went out after that, but I think a lot more neighborhoods could potentially highlight some of the historic properties in their neighborhood. And if it was being done all through town, that would create a base for tourism. So would anybody like to see that as a potential action step?
What specifically?
To promote grants for neighborhood walking tours through the
Oh, through different
visitors.
districts or?
Yeah.
Was that a shaking of the head yes or a shaking of the head no?
It's a shaking no.
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, do we have money for that? I mean, you said that.
Well, it was convention. They have a grant program.
Yeah.
It's just,
Mhm.
I don't know that it's marketed to
Oh,
neighborhoods at
Ames
all.
Convention Visitors Bureau.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it may just be part of our coordinative effort in trying to bring people together to promote historic preservation, to try to, maybe if we have a summit, we can talk about that as a potential. So it maybe doesn't need to be an action step.
And the Certified Local Government Program would probably fund that type of thing also.
Then it'd
It's
have to be
competitive.
through,
It's competitive, but yeah.
then it'd have to be through us or,
Well, then it would be an application from the city of Ames. And usually there's a match and the council would have to agree to the match.
Yeah. I'm wondering if could we solicit information from the Convention and Visitors Bureau about the type of people that come to Ames to spend? I mean, what do the tourist Ames look like? I have no idea. I mean, I imagine a lot of alumni, right? But besides that, I mean,
mostly on game weekends.
right. Yeah, so select weekends, however many a year. But I mean, who are we seeing as tourists? Who does this group, hope to attract? I mean, I assume they're trying to build tourism numbers to Ames, Story County as a whole. I mean, who are they hoping to get here in addition to alumni?
Mhm.
Could we solicit information from them or have them
even
come and
invite
present?
them to come
Yeah,
talk.
and because I think we can talk about tourism, and I just don't think that the residential neighborhoods are going to attract a lot of people from outside of Ames. I think the downtown, if marketed in a clever way,
Yeah, definitely.
could.
Mhm.
The university clearly could, but I think we need to know who we're trying to attract and realistically, what we could hope for.
Mhm.
Maybe they could come to a meeting and
That's what,
Yeah.
that was, yeah.
And it seems like everything we're talking about, the neighborhood summit is like a key component of so many of our action points that
Right.
it seems difficult to go through all of this with knowing that at that summit, we can talk about so many of these things and introduce what we do to all the neighborhoods in one place and get some feedback and have a dialogue.
I would say the summit, but also the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the summit is a time to say, this exists.
Right.
Okay, we'll go on to D, inform the public about the role of historic preservation in stabilizing and increasing property values and the community's tax base. There's two, well, maybe there's more. No, there's two action steps. Analyze property assessment records to test the hypothesis that values have risen in Old Town since the implementation of municipal design review in 1989. I don't know if anything was done. I mean, values go up everywhere. I mean, they aren't declining, but
right.
I don't think there are countless studies
Yeah.
well, certainly across Iowa, across the U.S., that support this hypothesis, or at worst say, well, there's no difference in property values. Nobody's being hurt by historic designation.
Mhm.
I don't know if it needs to be done yet again. I mean, we can point to statewide surveys.
I would say this is a low priority. Or,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Furthermore,
I don't know that, this long after the fact, it's such an hot item.
Yeah.
I don't think there's
and
people saying that it's hurting them.
no, I mean, I'm not hearing that
Yeah.
either. But is a general observation, I think we need to, especially now that we have the downtown National Register district, we should probably avoid just talking about Old Town. I think there's almost
Mhm.
an assumption that that's it
Mhm.
in Ames, but we have two
Right.
sizable districts now.
Right.
So I think in any reworking of this, we scratch Old Town, just talk about the historic districts.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So this whole objective D might be something we kind of decide whether or not it even needs to
Exist.
exist. Yeah.
Well, see, I had a big problem with using Convention and Visitors Bureau to promote that. It doesn't seem like that's,
Objective.
yeah, that's not I can see talking to the Chamber of Commerce about that historic preservation increases values, but I don't know that the Convention and Visitors Bureau was a appropriate outlet to be talking that point.
Yeah. it doesn't
Right.
So,
Follow logically. I think if anything, what we do is we don't look at a district that has been I mean, you could look at the Old Town neighborhood. You could show over a longer period of time that values have continued to increase. But what I'd rather see, given the option, would be to use the evidence that's out there to try to encourage other neighborhoods to
Right.
engage in preservation activity, or to at the very least get listed in the National Register. Use it as a way to sell listing, either locally or probably more realistically on the National Register.
so I guess I would say probably keeping the objective and trying to
Rework the,
rework, come up with an action step that sort of drops both of these and just is directed to promoting the idea.
Mhm.
There are other, when we look at how preservation has been analyzed anywhere in the country, it's always been in the context of the economic benefits,
Yeah.
if it's a kind of bias study, or the economic impacts if it's trying to be a little more objective. Is there anything else we want to know about this? I mean, and this is not rhetorical. I mean, I ask myself this question all the time. I mean, is there anything we want to know about the work that we've done as a commission to encourage preservation? I mean, and I think that's an interesting conversation to have. I mean, I think the longer our history in preservation, the more questions should naturally start to rise about what we're doing and why we're doing it. I mean, does the city have any questions about preservation activity? I mean, is it? I mean, does it conflict with zoning? Does it?
I know with the new Ames 2040 comprehensive plan, it will be addressed in there,
Yeah.
probably to a much greater extent than it is in the land use policy plan now. Because there's goals it's one of the 10 goals in the land use policy plan now about preservation, but there's just a short little blurb about it in the land use plan, and there'll probably be more in the comprehensive plan. Well, certainly historic preservation comes into play with zoning as we work with people that are buying properties, in areas that are designated as historic districts, or more districts than landmarks. We talk to them about what those guidelines and how the regulations are, in addition to what the base zoning is, and there's another overlay district that has not so much design guidelines, but has some additional regulations that apply not only in Old Town, but in an area a few blocks out from Old Town. That's the Single Family Conservation Overlay District. And so preservation and in terms of the historic district, and then preservation in terms of that Single Family Conservation Overlay District are topics that come up quite frequently. You know, as people come in and or they call and they want to know what the zoning is, or you know, what do I need to know about this property? I'm considering buying this property. So historic preservation is always in the conversation when it's, you know, in that area of the community. But, you know, if we had other areas designated, that would, you know, we just have the one local district. If we had other areas designated, it would come up in the conversation even more often. And there are other areas that are deserving.
Just thinking that, you know, as we don't, and I understand that this was written 10 years ago, and I know sustainability was only starting at that point to be on everybody's mind. And I'm just wondering if, if there's a way we can't use these goals to promote sustainability through historic preservation to try to address some of these goals that really have very little to do with preservation.
Right.
That have to do with growth within Ames, especially as we look at the new comprehensive plan that's coming out. I mean, can preservation be used to ensure some degree of stability in neighborhoods that people might not otherwise be willing to invest in? You know, can we use it to forward conversations about walkability? I mean, one of my big gripes about college towns in general is that you have a huge employer, you have students that are kind of a captive population that get shunted to the periphery, and then you have faculty and staff that drive to campus along with students. And if there has to be a way that we can encourage more home ownership near campus, and preservation might be a way to address that. I don't know.
So objective D could be something, and we're getting down to the nitty gritty to look at sustainability as a way to bring that into, update it, to bring that into the plan.
But do it in a quantitative way if we can. I mean, I like it, throughout this whole document, I think this is the only action step where I see analyze, you know, look at the data that we have and try to quantify and do it in a measurable, you know, way that will sway people's opinions.
I think that might be more,
Persuasive.
yes, more persuasive.
Yeah. Ray, do we have till 7 o'clock, or can we?
There's
No.
not a limit.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, we'll go to goal 2, promote the preservation of historically, architecturally, and archaeologically significant resources in the community. The objective A is, under that, is to provide financial support for the Ames Historical Society, which is now going by the name Ames History Museum, to assist in achieving the goals of the Ames Comprehensive Historic Preservation Plan. And the action step is to identify a strategy to fund one full-time equivalent professional staff employee and supporting costs for the Ames Historical Society. And off the top of my head, I think the city's providing about $44,000 a year to the Historical Society, or
For a staff person.
it's not identified specifically tied to a staff person, but it's, that's the level of annual funding from the city, which has gone up. About 4 years ago, it was maybe $35,000.
Okay.
So I don't know that it really covers a full-time equivalent, but it is substantial. The one thing might be it's a very the Historical Society presents a proposal to the city budget process and then gets approved for an amount and a contract is written based on the proposal they've made. I don't know if since the objective is to have it be supporting historic preservation, whether there might be some effort to incorporate some specifics that I know, because before I was involved with them, I went to them to get help on researching my home's history and stuff. I know they do that kind of thing, but it's not a specific task within their operation. So I think there'd be the possibility of trying to ask for something like that, or some marketing of that. I don't know.
Maybe the action step of identifying a full-time equivalent professional staff employee to fund, maybe that's, I mean, it's
Seems too
10 years
specific.
ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
Certainly continue to support them. I mean,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think so.
supporting's good. I mean,
Having more
But maybe-
flexibility.
maybe not specifically for a full-time staff member.
Because it never really has come to that
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, maybe that is still a goal to get it to that level, but I think there's a potential to try to more formalize a connection with historic preservation. And certainly historic preservation isn't the only reason for the city to be supporting Historical Society, but that one, I would say, has had fairly substantial accomplishment of the goal of the action step. So it may be appropriate to rework the action step. Objective B under goal number 2 is to promote economic incentive opportunities to encourage the preservation of historic buildings and neighborhoods. And the single action step under that is to provide property tax abatement for residential improvements to contributing resources within the designated historic districts and landmarks. And I'm not aware that there is anything specifically addressing that.
There isn't, like tax abatement through urban revitalization for those areas. I think that's what it's talking about.
And I wonder, it seems redundant too. I mean, we have the federal tax credits for downtown for income producing properties. We have the state tax credits for residential. So why would we need a tax abatement or tax assessment freeze program?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what the city adopted 10 years ago, and and in the downtown area, there's also the facade improvement
Right.
grant program, which isn't directly tied to historic preservation,
But it
But-
supports.
but supports that and has that among the criteria used to evaluate it.
Should this be under this goal? We're talking about economic incentives, opportunities under promote the preservation. I guess it is.
Yeah.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, I'd be inclined to say just get rid of, we just talk about encouraging the use of whatever financial incentives for historic preservation we can, as opposed to calling out a program that doesn't exist. That's geared towards residences specifically. I keep coming back to Main Street. I mean, we have,
We now have that, yeah.
yeah, and
Well-
all those properties are eligible for,
Except it's not a local district.
yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's,
that's part of the issue is without it being a local district, it's not technically under this commission.
but we promote
we promote,
preservation generally.
Yeah.
And I think promoting the federal rehab tax credit is the
And I-
single most.
And I think the idea of promoting what is in existence is appropriate to be.
Is it just informing though, or is it actually promoting?
I think it
I mean,
needs to
informing
be
just-
more than just information, but that's a first step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking
I
of the
think-
website,
Yeah,
you know,
I think we have accomplished that a lot better than it was until this year through the website.
right?
But I would agree with reworking that action step
Mhm.
unless we wanted to push the property tax abatement, but nothing has happened in 10 years, so.
Not a
Yeah,
thing.
I don't know why and we have the tools already there. It's just a matter of getting the information out to people who might avail themselves of them.
Okay, objective C, provide guidance for preserving and improving historic properties to developers, property owners, and others interested in historic preservation. First actions, 3 action steps. The first one, encourage the owners of public, commercial, and residential property to seek non-binding advice about proposed rehabilitation projects from the Ames Historic Preservation Commission. I'm okay with having that, but I think staff needs to be very prominently in that one because I don't see people coming to
Right.
the commission,
Yeah.
members of
Not
the
at meetings
commission
asking questions.
for that kind of technical. So I would say city staff
Mhm.
and the commission, or else even take the commission off. It's okay to leave the commission on there, but I think we need to focus on that kind of technical assistance is primarily through
For the
staff.
city.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
And whether it should say the planning department or, what exact reference it'd be, but that was something I saw very quickly when I read that one. The next action step is to encourage the retention of outbuildings on historic properties, particularly automobile garages. And one thing that's been done on that is the revision of Chapter 31.
Yep.
To include significant garages being covered by but that can apply to beyond the local districts.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd say that there has been some very significant accomplishment under that one, but there's still things that can be done additional. And I would imagine in the downtown, there's
Yeah.
some outbuildings and stuff that people aren't even aware of.
I have to think about that.
Yeah, I think retention and continued use. We
Yeah.
saw an example of this last month.
Yep.
Again, this in a roundabout way ties back to issues of sustainability and growth, at the periphery of Ames. If we want people to continue to invest in these older neighborhoods,
Mhm.
We can't be too dewy-eyed about this. We need to recognize that people might want to, do stuff to their garage to make it usable by
usable,
today's
yeah.
standards.
Mhm.
We saw that back in November, and so
Mhm.
retention and continued use,
Mhm.
or flexible.
Yeah.
Continued flexible reuse or something.
Right.
I think flexibility is the key word.
Third action step is to preserve natural resources with individual significance or that are significant as contributing to a landscape within which, and I would cross out the word other, historic buildings or structures are situated. Since we're talking about a natural resource, I'm not sure why it has other
Yeah.
for,
I think natural
Historic, yeah.
resource we're not talking about oil.
Right.
So I think like
we're
cultural
talking a
landscapes.
landscape
Right.
or a
I think cultural
natural
landscapes.
setting
Yeah, I
type
think
of
would-
I think that would, because that would include then things like signs or some other kinds of things, other
Well,
than
no,
natural
No, I think I didn't write this, but I think what they're getting at is landscape features.
landscape.
Yeah.
If you read the plan, they talk about Ames
Okay.
having a significant history with its landscapes because of the university and the landscape architecture
Okay.
department. But I think instead of natural resources, I just cultural landscape features, maybe.
Okay.
That's wordsmithing, but
Okay, objective D under goal 2, to encourage private support and commitment for preservation undertakings. And the one action step there is to encourage property owners to pursue National Register nominations as personal undertakings. I think it's appropriate to encourage that. I think it's appropriate also to offer assistance type of thing. So that would be my thought, is that
Yeah.
part of encouragement is
in a
to go
system-
beyond just
Yeah.
words and
I would say encourage and then assist where
yeah.
possible or where
Yeah.
appropriate. You guys are going to kill me for all the nitpickery here. That's a word.
No problem.
Nitpicking.
Mhm.
Undertaking has a very specific meaning in the preservation world, in Section 106 world. I would jettison that and just talk about preservation activity.
Or effort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go to objectives E under goal 2. Increase awareness of the potential for archaeological sites within the city and legal protection for them. The action step is in all historic survey projects, consider a property's potential for National Register Criterion D significance, which is archaeology, including sites where historical archaeology, previous buildings, foundations, and/or other habitation materials on a site might apply. I don't know.
It's fine.
Yeah. I don't know that there's been anything that's really happened in this, but it's sort of a basic item.
It's good form to always recognize that there could be below ground artifacts. And whenever I drive over the river coming here, during the day I look and you can see the piers from the old dinky rail lines. I mean, there is archaeological material here. We just tend to forget about it.
How many goals do we have? 6. Let's go through the third one and then leave the rest to the next meeting rather than go all night. That's
I
just a
apologize.
thought.
I think
Yeah.
I'm largely responsible for that. So.
No problem. Goal number 3, to enhance municipal policies to protect historical resources and implement policies through identification, effective legislation, and efficient regulatory measures. Objective A was to revise Chapter 31 of the code, which deals with local historic preservation districts, and that was accomplished, as we mentioned, in 2015. So I think Objective A can be knocked out, at least the first action step, but we didn't get any grants for it. It ended up being a in-house effort.
We did apply.
Yeah, we
Yep.
applied
But we weren't
or
successful.
you applied, I wasn't
Yeah,
on at the
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I don't know what, I'll leave it to you, whether the second action step to make sure historic preservation provisions of the building codes are consistent with Chapter 31. Was that all accomplished in the process?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it was.
So I think the Objective A can all just be
Delete.
set aside at this time as accomplished. We'll go to Objective B, which is to continue to improve AIM's inventories of historic properties through reconnaissance and intensive historical, architectural and archaeological surveys. And the action step is to identify and prioritize by the Ames Historic Preservation Commission potential reconnaissance and intensive historic survey projects, and to strategize by the commission funding mechanisms to achieve them. And I think it's appropriate to keep something along this line. I don't know, the effort on the downtown was sort of something that I don't know if that's can be attributed to this, or whether it was an independent effort or.
It was, listing the downtown was mentioned over and over again in the plan. I mean, that's a very definitive, giant, positive green check mark that
Yeah.
we did get done. I would maybe tweak the action step, identify and prioritize, but we have, how many did Will Page, how many surveys did he do? We have a whole lot of surveys that
There's several, and then,
but
again, in that Chapter 4, it identifies other
right.
ones we could be doing.
But the ones that were done by Will Page are old now, and probably need to be revisited.
Yeah.
I think, and so I would maybe clarify this or add something in here to say that we need to identify places that we want to survey, but also we might want to go back and revisit some of the key neighborhoods that were surveyed 10 or 20 years ago. I mean, the work is, we got the downtown done because that survey had been started. I think we ought to try to focus our efforts by working with the data that we've already generated and updating it. I think we would get more bang for our buck than identifying new neighborhoods.
And the second action step here is to prioritize the results of those previous surveys. Again, I think getting a link to those on the website would be a major part of that, and making that part of a summit, a neighborhood summit meeting. I think it's an appropriate thing to publicize that and let people know that it's there and that there's the potential to move forward.
It'd be nice to be able to demonstrate a grand reveal, so to speak,
Yeah.
at that point in time, you know, to say, here's some resources. And
Yeah. So,
Oh, I agree.
that's okay.
Just weighing whether or not I want to say more. I mean,
Go ahead.
I do think if you go back and you look at those documents, and this is true of every single preservation document that I've seen for the most part, what's handed over to the city by the consultant, it's well done, it's thorough, it's somewhat scholarly, but it's not intended for public consumption. And so I think there has to be an effort on somebody's part, probably the city's part, to take this material and render it in a format that people will actually, you know, can actually use. I mean, we're swimming in data nowadays, and to just have a whole bunch of additional PDFs to wade through is, I think, will get us nowhere. What I like to see is surveys revisited, surveys kind of tarted up and made, you know, easily digestible for the public. You know, lavishly illustrated, clearly mapped. You know, is my property contributing or not?
Can I put a deck on my house?
Yeah, yeah. X, no.
Right.
Green check mark, yes.
objective C under goal number 3 would be, or is to revise local historic district and landmark design guidelines to clarify their intent and reflect new materials, technologies, and green issues. That was a big part of the review of chapter 31. It's probably something that needs to be continually monitored, and you know, there may be a need to do that again. But I mean, that sort of gives some of the reasons why things might have to be reopened. The action step to remove internal inconsistencies and update design guidelines to reflect new materials, technologies, and green issues. I would add what Ted's been talking about is making it more graphic so that it's easily understood, so that examples that are easily recognized by the public.
I mean, this is, I think, the closest we come to touching on sustainability in this document. And you know, when I teach this topic to my students, you know, a lot of them understand kind of implicitly that, you know, that preservation is recycling, right? And preservation is greenest. The greenest building is one that's already built that stuff. They tend not to see, though, that it's really multi-scalar. I mean, there's in scale of the individual building and whether or not you're going to reuse the materials, or put them in the landfill. But there's also the urban issues, the sustainable urbanism scale issues. And I think I would like to see another action step in there that ties preservation in the older neighborhoods to these bigger planning efforts that are underway in the city, and really couch the existing neighborhoods in this discussion of sustainability at the Ames scale, in addition to the green issues that we talk about in the context of a single building.
They're basically tying it to the 2040 plan, I think, basically, in some ways, because some of that will be addressed there. I mean,
Yeah.
Objective D is to continue to designate local historic districts, local landmarks, and National Register of Historic Place properties. There's at least 4 action steps. Yes, 4. First action step to identify and prioritize by the Ames Historical Preservation Commission national or potential National Register historic districts and strategize by the commission funding mechanisms if necessary to list them.
I can't touch it.
Where it refers constantly to the commission, I think that's as adopted by the council. It's a charge to the commission. Again, I would say staff is a big part of this as well, but the commission, staff working with the commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
to do more surveys based on priorities you come up with for which areas first and second and so forth.
Yeah. And in the last 10 years, the major accomplishment has been the national designation of the downtown.
The downtown, yep.
At local initiative.
Yep.
Have we had any landmarks come in the last 10 years or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No.
Second action step under Objective D is to identify and designate properties eligible for listing as local landmarks and local historic districts. And I don't know that there's any changes needed in that. The designate would be to propose it to the city council, I'm assuming. Most of the stuff in chapter 4, the potentials, was all district-wide. Has there been any effort to identify individual properties or?
You mean as landmarks?
Yeah,
No,
okay.
no, not really.
I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
at the same
Sure.
time, talk about or review where there's accomplishment on some of these. Third action step under Objective D is to explore the possibility of designating a property in Ames as a National Historic Landmark. And I don't know why it specifies a property, but
I mean,
could potentially be more than one, but
we already have one.
Right. Yeah. We have more than.
yeah, we have.
We did it.
We
Yeah, we
did
have
it.
one.
NHLs?
But
Yeah.
Farmhouse?
We have
the
the
YSS headquarters,
YSS.
former
former
City Hall.
City Hall
Yeah.
and
No,
the,
Fifth and Kellogg.
Those aren't NHLs, are they?
yeah,
I think the only NHL in town is the farmhouse.
I think YSS is a local landmark and a national, it's listed on the National Register.
okay.
Well, are they in this action step? I think they're talking about National Historic Landmarks specifically.
Okay.
Okay.
So that's
so
the-
that's different.
And that's a
That's the,
register.
yeah, the
Okay.
NHL,
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
the creme de la creme
Okay.
of historic.
Yeah, you're
places.
right. You're right.
So the landmark is the farm.
The farmhouse. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I
Okay,
think the first one in the country was the Sergeant Floyd Memorial in Sioux City.
Mm.
So-
Really?
But there are a couple thousand nationwide, whereas there are over 1 million National Register. When
Okay.
so you,
I was like the president's house or something, you know, kind of thing.
you mean of the United States,
Oh,
the White
the
House?
historical landmark, you know.
The
Okay.
farm became a landmark since this was adopted?
No, I think the farmhouse was listed back in the 70s. I think,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
maybe even earlier.
Okay, fourth action step is explore the potential to register the Lincoln Highway and Ames as a National Register of Historic Places, Historic District. And I don't know that there's been any effort. There's been work on redeveloping it, but
and it's a scenic byway.
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Can be a district?
Well, I mean, there are the Arroyo Seco in LA it's a linear feature, but it's on the National Register. But
Mhm.
I don't think this has integrity.
Yeah, that would
And it would be a headache. I just can't even imagine
It would,
for
yeah.
under 106. It would.
well,
Yeah.
especially the effort to redevelop it would
Mm.
be contrary.
I think that needs to be jettisoned.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I certainly think that Lincoln Highway, some of the resources tied to Lincoln Highway, might be National Register eligible. We just saw one come up
Right.
near Marshalltown that was related in some way. It's an old diner. I can't remember the name of it, but clearly,
Oh, yeah.
there's a.
On 30?
Island or something like that. NIL.
Yeah, I think no, not that one. That one's also on the National
Okay.
Register. But anyway, like the Tip Top Club and things like that
Right,
are
right.
probably vestiges of that history.
Yeah, I know we had some motels on the east side of
Yeah.
town that had the automobile pulled right into the
Yeah.
room.
Well, there's a Lincoln marker right by
Yeah.
Iowa State Center too. So.
Okay, objective E under goal 3, ensure that the design guidelines for city development and redevelopment, I guess is what it means. Incentive programs respect the historic character of the properties and surrounding areas to which they are applied. Utilize the expertise of the action step under that is to utilize the expertise of the Ames Historic Preservation Commission. And I think the last time when we were talking about it, one of the things we mentioned was that it might be appropriate to have some kind of liaison between the Historic Preservation Commission and the facade grant program. The facade grant program does have historic preservation as a mentioned criteria, but there's no coordination with this body, and it may be appropriate to have some kind of liaison. Anything else on that one? We'll go to objective F, to encourage that expansion or development of city property follows good preservation practices. Action steps are first, to utilize the expertise of the Ames Historic Preservation Commission. And second, to develop and adopt a historic preservation policy for city properties. And I don't know that there's any real thing that's been done to
The
follow
library,
that. Okay,
yeah, the
Okay.
library would be an example of that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When they did the addition and renovated the old part.
Won't say it on there.
You got a mute button right there.
My thought there is that the Parley Sheldon House is now a parking lot across from the library.
Oh, yeah.
One of our best-known mayors,
Oh.
but that happened clear back in the early 60s, I think, that was torn down and the city parking put in there, so. Let's see. Objective G, protect the value of properties and neighborhoods by working to prevent deterioration of structures. And the action step is to support the minimum maintenance code for both rental and owner-occupied properties. I think there was a proposal for an owner-occupied maintenance standard 3 or 4 years ago, I
Yeah,
think, and
we
it
don't
didn't
have
go
one.
anywhere.
Yeah.
There is ongoing effort with a rental code, both positive and some controversy, I know. But I think, I would say those both are still appropriate goals.
Yep.
Or appropriate action steps.
Sure. Yeah, I think you ought to keep those in there.
I don't know, are people ready to take a break till next month? I'm tired
This
of
is
talking.
easily the longest meeting.
We've had, yeah.
Yes. But I think we need to get
Yeah,
through some
yeah,
of
we
this
can
stuff and,
pick it up next month and
okay.
go through it. Yep.
And again, I would say we need to go ahead and hold the meeting even if there aren't
And we'll,
properties waiting for,
we'll probably have something about the CLG annual report, the next one
Okay.
too, or either then or February, maybe February.
okay. Now we're to commission comments. Anybody have-
One thought that I have as we're going through this is, I don't know if on the website now, and I'm cloudy on what we discussed when we were talking about what we were adding to the website for homeowners to see if they can build a deck. If they can, I have to replace my window. Do I have to go through the commission? I've just heard of some homeowners in the Old Town District talk to me about, well, I'm just not going to go to you guys. You know, I want to put a deck on. And I heard my neighbors just went ahead and did the deck and they just didn't tell anybody. So is there, I don't know.
So, I mean, is there a way to enforce that?
Well, just how do we make us not scary? And so the homeowners, if they want to do a deck, that they feel like they can ask somebody, can I do a deck? They think it's very complicated. And I said, you can go to the city, they'll help you walk you through it. But people have, word on the street is that it's so difficult. And how do we encourage people to go through the channels that we want them to go through?
Well, my experience in buying my house was that the realtors were telling
were the-
people that it was real scary to get
Oh.
anything done
Okay.
in this area.
Yeah.
So
Um,
I think anything we can do to clarify it and make it a non-scary process.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes,
Because I think there's
depending on location, sometimes the deck isn't allowable, but usually it is as long as it's landscape screened and
and I think
not
there's
detracting.
there are, maybe 2 or 3 major components that frequently come through to
Yeah.
us. And it's the garage, it's a porch, it's windows.
Yeah.
So if
Mhm.
we have just some very basic
Yeah.
questions that the majority of people have
Hmm.
and a quick, easy answer,
Yeah.
that would be extremely beneficial.
Right.
Well, I think what we can do too,
Yeah.
and
we could do that.
yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
we at one point we saw a list of all the COAs that had come before us over the last couple
Exactly.
of years.
Yeah.
So you start to get a sense of what we're seeing.
is it?
And there are consistencies. I mean, windows are always everywhere.
Yep.
I mean, if there's a way that we can, again, I would say the website is the ideal tool for this, lay all this out, try to assuage any concerns about what this process entails, because let's face it, it's not that draconian.
Right.
It doesn't take that long. We meet every month. We're not a bunch of hard noses about this. I think even a statement about our goals. I mean, as a commission, we want to see the continued use of these properties. We don't want to see the creation museum pieces.
Right.
And I think you call that out in no uncertain terms. And as we look at websites around the country, the good ones do that. They say, we don't want a neighborhood full of farmhouse museums.
Right.
We want functioning, living, breathing buildings that are in the tax rolls, right? That people want to live in. So we're going to make the process as easy as we can, even though we do have rules that we need to adhere to.
Yeah.
So,
When I think one of the things to talk about is that the bulk of proposals get an approval through staff
Alterations.
based on what's already much more clear in the code than it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And so there isn't that much that even comes to our level, because a
Right.
lot of it's fairly clear cut.
A lot of it's
That's-
alterations, yeah.
that's a great point, though.
Yeah.
98% of the things we see
Yeah.
go through, and they go through in a speedy fashion.
Yeah.
In a month. And
Right, yeah.
that would, I think,
So how do
scare
we
a lot.
get, how do we get that to the people?
Maybe
Well-
we could have something on the website like frequently asked questions and
Yeah.
give some answers to those. Would that help?
Well, I don't think they're even looking.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's something that's got to be on their door that they get in the mail.
Oh, okay, you're not seeing the
something-
website.
Well, it would be on the website,
Okay,
but I don't think the people that I've talked to, I know that they're not going to go to the website to look for the
Looking for
information.
oh, okay.
That it's something that somehow new homeowners have to find out, whether it's, I don't know if it's mail. I don't know what the answer is,
Yeah.
but just some basic questions so they understand it's not that difficult. They don't have to get a $5,000 window with gold plating,
Maybe, maybe like a brochure that realtors could pass out.
something, yeah.
Or the
Well-
neighborhood group. I mean, a lot
Yeah,
of times
we-
you're talking to your neighbors and this is like.
Right.
We right now don't have anybody doing it, but we have a welcome packet that we distribute
There.
in
Oh, that's good.
throughout the
Yeah.
greater Old Town neighborhood.
Oh, so that's-
But we could, if the city had, or
Mhm.
That
this
commission.
commission had a brochure, we could be including that in there. And
and it could have
our
the top
neighborhood
3.
association board is trying to get that function up and running again. So,
And maybe something, a non-threatening neighborhood contact person,
Yeah.
rather than having to look on a website or
That's-
call the city office, somebody who's also done this. And wasn't that big
Yeah, I
scary deal
sus-
after all.
Right.
I suspect a lot of people don't want to talk to the city because they're afraid once they've made
Oh.
contact, they'll
Oh, no, they'll come look.
be investigated.
Yeah,
So for a new
exactly.
deck, would they require a permit with the homeowner?
Well, for a new deck, yeah, they definitely need a building permit, yeah.
Well, then tied to the building permit process. I mean, that would be,
Oh,
I
that's a good idea.
mean, if
Yeah.
there's a way to,
If they're going through.
Because
Well, and then there's that.
we've had
Yeah.
cases where
Yeah,
someone
there's
applies
always-
for a building permit and then the inspections office notifies them and us that they need to go to the commission first.
And then they go, oh, geez. Okay, never mind.
or
I'm
or
not
just,
doing a deck.
I mean, or just at that building permit,
Mhm.
step in the process, have the building permit folks point in our
Yeah.
direction. I mean, not to this commission, but to the website.
Well, really, no building permit should be issued in the historic district if they haven't got.
Right, yeah, and that's, and inspections office, they're good about
Mhm.
telling people about that, when they apply.
What about doing videos? Like someone like you or Eloise, to do a little video, seeing a friendly face, just giving some basic information like, do you live in Old Town? Do you want to do windows? Do you want to do a deck? these are some simple answers, and this is where you find out your answer. This is where you can find an answer. I'm thinking that that could really help people realize it's not, it's not that we're people that can help them achieve their goal. We're not trying to stop, them from doing what they want to do to their property.
And if something like that was done, Old Town has two open to the neighborhood events, soup supper in
Oh, yeah.
February and then a picnic in September. And we could display those there, but also have them available maybe on YouTube or somehow.
That would be nice. Wouldn't that be connected to
yeah.
the web? Right.
Probably, yeah. But sometimes if it's available other than on the official site, people are more likely to.
Right. It's not so intimidating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other commission comments?
It's a big comment.
Staff comments? Any
Nothing
Any,
that I have right now.
new applications or anything coming through or?
Nope.
Okay. I did note that a couple of the projects have proceeded that we, particularly the house at Burnett and 8th.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
is
that's looking really
looking
nice.
wonderful.
Isn't that though,
So,
with that
yeah.
porch?
So
Looks
yeah.
really nice.
Corner?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. And we've taken some pictures and I'm sure they have too, in progress. So they've really done a good job on that.
I
That
think-
would, a testimonial would be good too. I mean, get
Yeah.
somebody like that or the
Yeah.
guy that we had with the garage and
Mhm.
right.
get a,
Yeah, get residents on video.
Yeah.
or even just a little snippet saying,
Sure.
Sure.
Yeah.
these guys are really easy to deal with. I have a nice new garage as a result,
Right.
or not new, but
Nice old
yeah,
Yeah.
newly
renewed
repurposed,
garage. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
yeah. So
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
Oh, everybody have a nice Christmas.
Yeah.